Cambodia, a country known for its rich Khmer culture, has recently gained notoriety for a much darker reason: its emergence as a hub for scams and human trafficking. Over the past few years, scams have flourished within the country, with many foreign nationals, especially from China and Vietnam, becoming entangled in these fraudulent schemes. Many of the victims were lured into Cambodia under the false promise of high-paying jobs, only to find themselves trapped in human trafficking rings. These scams, often operating like corporate entities, are intertwined with online fraud, targeting vulnerable individuals who are desperate for employment opportunities. The rise of scams in Cambodia highlights a disturbing trend in the region, where economic challenges and weak governance have created a fertile ground for criminal operations. These fraud networks, often located in remote areas or disguised as legitimate businesses, not only exploit the locals but also draw in unsuspecting foreign workers. For many of these victims, the journey to Cambodia began with a seemingly innocent advertisement, promising a better life, only to find themselves entrapped in a cycle of exploitation and abuse. As these operations grow in scope, the question remains: why hasn't the Cambodian government taken more decisive action? In the next section, we will explore the role of corruption within the Cambodian law enforcement system, shedding light on how such operations have thrived under the radar, often with the tacit approval or outright involvement of local authorities. Scam operations in Cambodia have become a significant issue, deeply intertwined with human trafficking and online fraud. These criminal activities are often triggered by deceptive advertisements promising high-paying jobs with little to no qualifications required. The lure of these ads is particularly strong among vulnerable individuals from neighboring countries like China and Vietnam. These individuals are often persuaded to travel to Cambodia with the hope of a better life, only to find themselves trapped in abusive environments. Once in Cambodia, victims like Nguyen Van Sie, along with many others, are subjected to severe coercion. They are forced to participate in scams that target unsuspecting individuals worldwide. The operations are structured with a clear hierarchical system, where lower-level workers such as CA are exploited and manipulated to execute the scams. These networks are not just limited to one building or operation. They extend across various locations, often disguised as legitimate businesses. The victims are often housed in cramped, guarded environments to prevent escapes. The coercion these victims face is far beyond what many imagine. They are not only subjected to physical abuse, such as beatings or electrocution for failing to meet scam quotas, but are also psychologically manipulated. Victims are made to believe that they have no other options and are told repeatedly that attempting to escape will lead to severe punishment or even death. Their passports and identification are often confiscated, leaving them powerless and vulnerable. For many, the psychological toll of being trapped in such an environment is just as harrowing as the physical abuse. The connection to online gambling is also notable in these scam operations. Many of these fraud networks are linked to online gambling platforms that operate illegally, using fraudulent methods to trap users into losing money. By offering fake lottery services or manipulated betting odds, these platforms not only deceive, but also contribute to the larger issue of money laundering. The profits generated from these scams often flow into various illicit channels, further entrenching the criminal enterprises. It's important to understand the scale of these operations. In some cases, these fraud rings are responsible for scamming not just hundreds, but thousands of victims across multiple countries. The scope of the operations is vast, and the internet has only made it easier for criminals to cast a wider net. With the ability to reach individuals globally through social media platforms and other online channels, the operations in Cambodia have evolved into a global issue. The scale of the fraud becomes clear when examining the nature of the scams. Victims, like those targeted by Nguyen Van Sie's operation, are typically promised high-paying jobs or business opportunities. These promises are made through online advertisements, often posted on social media platforms or job recruitment sites, promising work that requires minimal experience or qualifications. Once these victims travel to Cambodia, they are forced into scam-related activities. They might be told that they will work in offices or businesses, but instead, they find themselves in isolated locations, where they are coerced into participating in fraudulent activities, such as luring others into the same trap. The connection to online gambling and money laundering is more than just incidental. Many of these scams are specifically designed to manipulate individuals into spending money or gambling on fake platforms. The connection to money laundering is especially concerning, as the illegal profits made through these scams are often funneled into global networks of illicit finance. Online gambling fraud, in particular, has exploded in Cambodia, with many of these platforms designed to deceive users into depositing money that will never be returned. Instead, they are either blocked from withdrawing funds or manipulated into continuing to play with little chance of winning. At the heart of these operations is a dark truth. Many of the perpetrators are not simply low-level criminals, but are often connected to larger networks that engage in illegal money laundering and other high-stakes criminal activities. This gives them a degree of protection and makes it far more difficult for authorities to dismantle their operations. Many of these criminal groups have connections to high-level individuals in both Cambodia and abroad, which complicates the efforts of law enforcement to intervene effectively. While the Cambodian law enforcement agencies are technically capable of dismantling these operations, the presence of corruption within the system complicates efforts to address the issue. Allegations of complicity between certain officials and the scam groups have surfaced over time, raising suspicions about whether the authorities are turning a blind eye to the scale of the fraud. This reluctance or failure to act has allowed these networks to thrive and continue exploiting vulnerable populations. These criminal groups are highly organized and have developed an infrastructure that is difficult to infiltrate. The operations are set up in residential areas that are heavily guarded, often with high fences and barbed wire, creating a sense of inescapability for their victims. Even when raids are conducted by law enforcement, the criminals behind these operations are often tipped off in advance. This further exacerbates the issue, as the perpetrators know how to cover their tracks and avoid detection. As the fraud epidemic continues, the need for systemic change becomes even more urgent. These operations not only damage the lives of those directly affected, but also harm Cambodia's reputation on the global stage. The question remains, will Cambodia's leadership take the necessary steps to confront and dismantle these criminal networks, or will the country continue to serve as a sanctuary for illicit activities? This issue is complex, deeply rooted in both economic hardship and systemic corruption, and will require coordinated action to resolve. While some officials have expressed concern about the growing influence of these criminal enterprises, the actions taken so far have often been insufficient. The Cambodian government needs to show more determination in addressing these problems. If they fail to act decisively, the global community may begin to question whether the country can truly escape the grip of these dangerous criminal networks. Corruption within Cambodian law enforcement has played a crucial role in allowing scam operations to thrive across the country. The scale and complexity of these criminal networks are largely sustained due to the involvement, or at the very least, the tacit approval of certain law enforcement officers. This complicity within the system has enabled illegal activities such as human trafficking, online fraud, and money laundering to operate almost without interference. Despite Cambodia's police forces being capable of dismantling these criminal operations, a lack of action, often due to corruption, has allowed these organizations to proliferate and expand. The situation surrounding Nguyen Van Ca, a victim trapped in one of Cambodia's notorious scam dens, highlights the systemic issues within law enforcement. Ca was drawn into the scam operations by a seemingly legitimate advertisement promising a high-paying job. However, upon his arrival, he was held captive and forced into fraudulent activities. When Ca attempted to escape and report the crime to local authorities, his efforts were thwarted. Police, rather than taking immediate action to free the victims or raid the fraud centers, dismissed his claims, citing the need for a permit from higher authorities. This lack of urgency, or more troublingly, the lack of willingness to intervene, speaks volumes about the inefficiency, or worse, the complicity of the law enforcement system in Cambodia. In another disturbing example, a Chinese victim tried to reach out to the police after being tortured and sold between various scam groups. Unfortunately, rather than being rescued, the victim's request for help led to his further victimization. Local police revealed sensitive information, inadvertently leading to the victim being trafficked to another criminal group. The case was widely reported, but the response from the Cambodian government was feeble at best. This incident exemplifies the apparent collaboration between criminal syndicates and certain officials within the Cambodian police force, creating a dangerous environment where the law is either bypassed or directly undermined. The complicity of Cambodian law enforcement not only allows these scams to flourish but also further isolates the victims who desperately seek assistance. It is not unusual for victims to feel trapped within the system, unable to turn to the very authorities who are supposed to protect them. Many victims, like those who have been forced into scam operations, report that when they attempt to seek help, they are either ignored or actively discouraged from pursuing legal action. The complex and often dangerous network of criminal activity in Cambodia is fueled by the very people entrusted to stop it. The lack of coordinated efforts to tackle the problem only exacerbates the issue. While neighboring countries like Vietnam and Thailand have called for international cooperation to address the cross-border nature of these crimes, Cambodia's law enforcement has been slow to act. This delay in response is not simply a case of bureaucratic inefficiency, but a reflection of deeper, systemic issues within the country's police force. The reluctance of high-ranking officials to confront the problem head-on, in part due to the corruption that has infiltrated their ranks, further emboldens these criminal networks. As the scams continue to spread, fueled by online platforms, and as the profits from these operations fund illicit activities, the international community is left to question whether Cambodia's law enforcement is either unable or unwilling to intervene. With such large-scale exploitation of vulnerable individuals and the country's own political inertia, the stakes have become higher than ever. Cambodia's reputation as a safe haven for fraudsters is not just an embarrassment. It threatens the very fabric of the country's international relations and security. The Cambodian government has taken some steps to combat these fraud rings, particularly in the wake of international pressure, but the results have been mixed. Raids on illegal gambling operations have been carried out, but the criminals behind these operations are often one step ahead. The sophistication of the networks and their use of digital tools, such as encrypted cryptocurrencies and secure communications platforms, further complicates the efforts of law enforcement. As technology evolves, so too do the methods employed by these criminal syndicates, leaving police forces scrambling to keep up. The question that remains is whether Cambodia's leadership is prepared to tackle the corruption within its law enforcement agencies and confront the criminal enterprises that continue to exploit both Cambodian citizens and foreigners. Without genuine systemic reform, these networks will continue to operate with impunity, further undermining the country's stability and reputation. It is clear that change is necessary, but whether the Cambodian government is willing to take the necessary steps remains uncertain. The corruption embedded within the law enforcement system is a barrier that must be broken down if Cambodia is to free itself from the grip of these criminal organizations. Moving forward, the global community must maintain pressure on Cambodia to address the systemic corruption that allows such exploitation to persist. Victims who have been trafficked, tortured, and exploited deserve to see justice, and the police must fulfill their duty to protect them. The current state of affairs is untenable, and for Cambodia to begin the long road toward recovery, the first step is a fundamental change within its law enforcement agencies. The future of countless individuals hangs in the balance, and the stakes could not be higher. Cambodia's casino industry, particularly in border regions like Sihanoukville and Poipet, has become a focal point for serious criminal activities, including money laundering, cyber fraud, human trafficking, and unsafe working conditions. Here's an overview of the situation. Casinos in Southeast Asia, including Cambodia, have long been associated with money